working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Crystal Ann Ballesteros, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region on today's headlines. 3 Southeast Asian foreign ministers and a regional envoy tasked with solving the Myanmar crisis met with the junta's top diplomat at an informal meeting in Thailand on Thursday. Beijing says that report claiming that China has started reclaiming several unoccupied land features in the disputed South China Sea is completely groundless. Meanwhile, the Philippines ordered its military to boost their presence in the South China Sea on Thursday. This is in response to Chinese activities in the disputed waters. Vietnamese police arrested Hanoi's vice mayor and a senior diplomat after accusing them of receiving bribes connected to a repatriation campaign during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. With 12 votes in favor and 3 abstentions, the UN Security Council adopted a resolution on Myanmar for the first time since the military unleashed a brutal crackdown on the people of Myanmar nearly 2 years ago. Speaking to the council after the vote in New York, UK Ambassador Barbara Woodward, whose country is the penholder of the resolution, said the UN has responded to ASEAN's call.
12 votes in favor, 3 abstentions. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2669 of 2022.
With this adoption, the Council has responded to the calls of ASEAN leaders for UN support for their efforts. The resolution calls for the cessation of violence, immediate and concrete implementation of ASEAN's 5-point consensus, respect for the democratic will of the people of Myanmar, respect for human rights and accountability for those who violate them, full and unhindered humanitarian access to those in need, and the immediate release of all those arbitrarily detained, including Aung San Suu Kyi and President Win Myint. Today we've sent a firm message to the military that they should be in no doubt we expect this resolution to be implemented in full. We've also sent a clear message to the people of Myanmar that we seek progress in line with their rights, their wishes and their interests.
The resolution demonstrates the Security Council's progress in taking action on the serious crisis in Myanmar and counters threats to international peace and stability. Despite the positive elements contained in the resolution and the challenges to adoption, we would have liked to see a stronger text. We are clear this is only a first step. As such, the National Unity Government calls on the UNSC, building on this resolution, to take further and stronger action.
It has been split on how to deal with the Myanmar crisis, with China and Russia arguing against strong action. They both abstained from the vote along with India. The remaining 12 members voted in favor. Russia's UN Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said Moscow did not view the situation in Myanmar as a threat to international peace and security and therefore believe it should not be dealt with the UN Security Council. 3 Southeast Asian foreign ministers and a regional envoy tasked with solving the Myanmar crisis met with the junta's top diplomat at an informal meeting in Thailand on Thursday, the Thai government said. There was candid and constructive discussion between the foreign ministers of Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, Thai Foreign Ministry spokesperson Kanchana Patarachoke said. She said this included the opportunity to hear from Myanmar and to exchange views on finding the exit strategy and pathways towards a return to normalcy in Myanmar. It was the first time in more than a year that its foreign minister met an ASEAN foreign minister grouping in person after the bloc snubbed the junta from top-level summits over a lack of progress on ASEAN's peace plan. Kanchana emphasized that while the meeting was a non-ASEAN gathering, it was intended to complement the regional bloc's work. The meeting came shortly after the United Nations Security Council adopted its first resolution on Myanmar, demanding an immediate end to all forms of violence. A Bloomberg story on Tuesday entitled "China Accused of Fresh Territorial Grab in South China Sea" said that China is building up several unoccupied land features in the South China Sea. Bloomberg warned that Beijing's latest construction activity indicates an attempt to advance a new status quo, even though it's too early to know whether China would seek to militarize them. This is what China Foreign Ministry had to say. Listen to this.
红报社有关报道
The Bloomberg report is groundless. Not to take action on uninhabited islands and reefs is a solemn consensus reached between China and ASEAN countries in the declaration of Code of Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. China has all along strictly abided by this consensus. And China and Philippine relations are enjoying a sound momentum. We will continue to properly handle maritime issues through friendly consultation. Properly. Next one, please.
On Tuesday, Bloomberg published U.S. satellite imagery that purported to show several years of Chinese land reclamation on a group of reefs and cays that are close to the island of Pag-asa, also known as T2. It's an island held by the Philippines where military and Coast Guard detachments are based. On Thursday, the Chinese embassy in Manila also said that China abides by the prevailing consensus in the disputed waters not to develop any uninhabited reefs of islands. Meanwhile, the Philippines ordered its military to boost their presence in the South China Sea on Thursday. This is in response to Chinese activities in the disputed waters. Manila did not specify what activities it was referring to, but the announcement comes 2 days after a new report revealed Chinese land reclamation projects in the Spratly Islands. In a statement Thursday, the Department of National Defense, or DND, said any encroachment or reclamation on the features in the West Philippine Sea is a threat to Pag-asa Island, which is part of the country's territory. The DND also said such actions also endangers the marine environment and undermines the stability of the region. Meanwhile, Westcom, in a separate statement Thursday, said its regular naval and air patrols have observed the persistent presence of a China militia vessels in 3 locations in the West Philippine Sea. Low-lying islands and reefs in the South China Sea are disputed between China, the Philippines, Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei. The Philippine Senate on Wednesday referred to the Committees on National Defense and Foreign Relations the privileged speech made by Senator Francis Tolentino regarding a recent bullying by a Chinese vessel to the Philippine Navy in the West Philippine Sea.
How else can we help the Philippine Navy? the fisher folks, not just in Palawan, in all coastal areas, and every Filipino living today and in the future, because, as you yourself has said, the effective implementation of the Hague ruling is our duty. And it is the least we could do for the next generation of Filipinos. Aside from the note verbal, aside from privileged speeches, ano pa po ang kailangan natin gawin para tigilan ng ating kaibigan na malaking bansa sa Asia ang kanilang pang-aabuso at hindi pagsunod sa isang maliwanag na ruling na dapat nilang respetuhin. Bawal ang bully sa mundo.
I'm aware that the other side is listening, but
I want them to hear it. That's why I am making my voice loud and clear.
Mr. President,
I'm not saying it was a bully. Bawal ang bully. Kung sino ang matamaan, silang masaktan.
beyond mere courtesy visits, I think we have to engage Malaysia. We have to engage Vietnam. We have to engage the other claimants, Mr. President, to make our positions unified. And that would probably include Taiwan. Taiwan has an island, is claiming an island near that area. From our part, Mr. President, I think there is a need likewise to strengthen our position in Pag-asa Island. We need more teachers in Pag-asa Island. We need more school buildings in Pag-asa Island. We need more, we need the presence of BIFAR in Pag-asa Island. We need the Department of Agriculture in Pag-asa Island. We have to strengthen the municipality of Kalayaan as an LGU so that the mayor will not just be operating from a place far Puerto Princesa. We have to really beef Pag-asa Island. Mr. President, in the short term, Mr. President, we have to announce and pronounce our position even on the eve, Mr. President, of the President's state visit come 3 January to Beijing.
Perhaps we can request the Senate to write the agencies regarding this request and earmark it for those areas, whether it's school buildings, Doppler radar, or Pag-asa Station, or BIFAR Research Station. Kung maaari po kung magdagdag ang BMB, Biodiversity Management Bureau, ng DENR, para magkaroon ng database o inventaryo ng ating biodiversity sa lugar na yun.
This came after Senator Francis Tolentino delivered a privileged speech and showed footage of an incident near Pag-asa Island in November, in which the Chinese Coast Guard could be seen taking suspected rocket debris retrieved by Philippine Navy personnel. The Chinese embassy, however, denied that the Chinese Coast Guard forcefully retrieved the object, saying that it was done through friendly consultation. The South China Sea holds an estimated 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 11 billion barrels of untapped oil, with much more potentially undiscovered reserves. The South China Sea is also a vital trade route connecting the main arteries of trade in Southeast Asia. More than 2,200 flights were canceled across the United States by Thursday afternoon as a massive winter storm named Elliott upended holiday travel plans with a triple threat of heavy snow, howling winds, and a bitter cold. A bomb cyclone threatening 140 million people across the United States.
You know what? The travel was really smooth, except for the descent. It was a little bumpy on the way down. I think we hit the storm.
Where are you coming from?
We're coming from Sarasota, Florida, coming home to visit family for Christmas.
Did you change your flight to come in earlier to beat the weather?
Yes. Actually, I was supposed to fly out like 7:30 tonight, and then we saw the weather and figured we had to get on an earlier flight so we didn't get stuck for 2 days someplace.
When did you change?
A couple of days ago, when we heard there's a storm coming, we changed from Friday to Thursday, like today.
Are you going on vacation? Or are you going to meet family? Or are you?
Yeah, we're going to meet family in California.
National Weather Service or NWS forecaster Michael Charnick tweeted a video showing drivers struggling along a highway between Colorado and Wyoming, where the temperature with wind chills plummeted to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The NWS released key safety messages on its Twitter account, warning snow squalls bursts of moderate to heavy snow lasting an hour or two had already happened or were expected from the Central Plains to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. At least 5 U.S. states, Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, Georgia, and North Carolina, have already implemented emergency plans, and others are likely to follow with the worst of the Arctic blast yet to come. As of 2019, there were 4.2 million Filipinos or Americans with Filipino ancestry in the United States. November export orders from Taiwan saw their sharpest contraction since the height of the financial crisis in a portent for the health of the global economy. Orders from overseas dropped 23% in November, according to data released by the Economics Ministry on Tuesday, the biggest fall since March 2009 when the world was being battered by the financial crisis. The plunge was much worse than the near 13% drop economists surveyed by Bloomberg News had forecast. Global sentiment has been hit by inflation and central bank interest rate hikes, as well as concerns over the health of China's economy. The baseline forecast from Oxford Economics now anticipates a global recession starting in Q4 2022 and comprising 3 straight quarters of negative per capita world GDP growth, said a note from the advisory firm. Taiwan is a global supplier of electronics, in particular state-of-the-art semiconductors, and the drop-off in orders adds to evidence that demand for technology products is weakening across the globe. Socioeconomic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said economic growth will likely exceed target this year given expectations of a robust fourth quarter. The NEDA chief said the economic managers are closely monitoring internal and external risk that may affect the country's economic performance in the next quarters. The government, he said, needs to expand and diversify the country's sources of growth if it is to keep the economy growing.
Well, yeah. The target initially for 2022 was 6.5% to 7.5%, right? That first 3 quarters, we're already reaching 7.7, no? Or 6. So it's quite exceeded already, and I think given the indications that we are seeing in the fourth quarter, it's likely going to exceed that even the upper limit of that range.
Okay.
We expect to see robust growth in the fourth quarter. And moving for next year, we of course are aware of the global headwinds there, particularly the very likely recession for many advanced economies, and the persistence of that problems with the supply chain, particularly in relation to the ongoing war in Ukraine. So there are still uncertainties there, and so we have reduced a bit the expect our targets from 6.5% to 8% originally to now just 6 to 7% for next year. And we believe that there's a lot of space for domestically driven growth. That the major driver of growth is consumption and the supply side and the demand side, and then you have services also on and the supply side. We expect that to continue in the near term, next year. Moving forward, in the medium term, we need to expand, diversify those sources of growth. We need to, instead of just looking at consumption, we need to be seeing more investment. We need to be seeing more trade sources of growth. And in the supply side, instead of just seeing services, we need to seeing more manufacturing, more construction, more utilities, more even mining. We hope that would contribute strongly to medium-term growth. Agriculture, of course, is going to be also a driver to the extent that we can increase productivity there and temper any pressures exerted on food prices.
Vietnamese police arrested Hanoi's vice mayor and a senior diplomat after accusing them of receiving bribes connected to a repatriation campaign during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, officials said Thursday. On Thursday, the Public Security Ministry issued arrest warrants for the capital city's vice mayor, Chu Van-duc, 49, and former ambassador to Japan, Bu Hung-nam, 59. They were accused
diseases, especially in the aftermath of disasters, including climate-related events. Lifewater.org reports that the top 5 countries without clean water are Ethiopia, Papua New Guinea, the Republic of Chad, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Filipino teachers and Japanese studies 2 categories under the 2023 Monbukagakushu Scholarship Program were opened, targeting foreign teachers and university students taking up Japanese studies. For the teacher training category, the applicant must be aged 35 years and below, has at least 5 years of experience, and is working as a teacher in elementary or secondary education or a teacher training school. Once approved, Japan would fund the applicant's research on the fields of education management, methods of education, special subjects, and observation study in a university in Japan. Filipino students aged 18 to 29 years and are currently majoring in Japanese studies, on the other hand, are eligible for a 1-year scholarship also in Japan. Both categories require the scholar to return to the Philippines, the Japanese embassy in Manila said Thursday. Application forms and information on prerequisites may be viewed and downloaded from the embassy website. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind.